Welcome again to the Unfair Advantage sessions. In this series of interviews, we speak with local and global leaders in the digital, the social, and insights industry, with a heavy focus on the tech that exists behind those industries and that powers it. These interviews are intended to dive deep into the experiences, the history, and the philosophies that make our guests leaders in their fields. And we're going to try to uncover what gives them that unfair advantage. And today I have the great pleasure to talk to one of the coolest people in tech, Sebastian Hedencrona, from the Chief Growth Officer at one of the most innovative consumer insights companies in the world and one of YOUKNOW's most passionate partner vendors, the Global Web Index. Thanks for joining, Sebastian. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me, Kelvin.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I asked you to put up a background behind you, and I see that you've got a brand new logo on the back there. What's that about?
Yeah, it's thank you first off, just thank you for having me. This is brilliant, and I love the work that you guys are doing. So it's just a real pleasure. So logo, that's quite exciting. It's very, very new for us. So I think even just yesterday we started kind of talking about this kind of new logo and new experience. So for 10 years, we've been Global Web Index, or almost 11 years we've been Global Web Index. And it was kind of time for a costume change, right? We are in a lot of ways the same business that we were when the business was founded 10 years ago, same strong core principles. But the reality is when you first founded, it was a heavy focus on digital. It's a part of the name. And now we're so much more than that. We're being a target audience company, we service needs across a whole different types of sectors, different focus areas, online, offline, different types of products and capabilities. So we are looking forward to where we are going in the next 3, 5, 10 years. And it was just time for something that reflected that, something a little bit more bold, a little more relevant. And GWI is the new brand. It is no longer Global Web Index. It is quite simply GWI.
So we don't even refer to it as Global Web Index anymore. Just the three letters. That's amazing.
Just the 3 letters. It doesn't even mean Global Web Index anymore. It is just GWI.
It's going to take a while for me to get used to that.
Don't worry, I'll repeat it.
so maybe for the handful, the 3 people at home that don't really know what GWI, or previously Global Web Index, is all about, do you want to just give us a high-level concept of what the company is doing?
Yeah, for sure. At the heart of it, and then how we think about the world around us, every business in the world has a audience. Most businesses have multiple audiences. These are your customers that you're trying to engage with, maybe your customers you have today, your customers of tomorrow. Different products serves different needs. And foundationally, for you to be able to build great experiences with your customers, and that could be on a service level, it could be on where you're going to reach them on the kind of through different types of mediums, or the products that you build. You really need to understand what's driving them, what's motivating them, and how do they think about the world around them. You need to become a part of that. You need to solve problems that they're facing or make their life better, easier, faster, whatever it is. And this is where our obsession comes from. Our obsession comes from being able to help companies understand their audiences and being able to kind of, make the most of that experience.
And also knowing what you guys do, doing that at the speed of digital. I think that's one of the really innovative things about what you do is answering this age-old question of who is my audience, what do they do, where are they, but instantaneously. The speed at which life is going these days.
Yeah, I think it's in some ways like what we do is the foundation of marketing since 1.0, right? When you had your saloon at the end of the Western Strip and you're trying to understand why people are coming to your business or why they're not, you speak to your customers. You understand who they are. You understand what they're interested in, what they're drinking, what they're eating, and whatever it is. And on a digital scale, we're amplifying this globally, right? For any audience, anywhere. And like you say, when the business was founded some 11 years ago, digital was truly changing the pace at which we needed to understand how people were adopting new technologies, how people were adopting new platforms, how people were similar or different across different types of markets, because we now have platforms that enables us to reach our customers anywhere in the world. And this is very much where that kind of like the gap in the market that our, founder, Tom, looked at and said, somebody needs to fill this gap. Somebody needs to, close this down.
Yeah. Because it does feel like the market research industry, for lack of a better word, has been doing the same thing for 100 years or more, asking people questions, writing them down, and then taking a long time to collate that. So it was about time that a new approach was taken. But you're basically part of the furniture. You say the company's been around 11, 12 years. How long have you been part of GWI?
So I joined October 2010, about a year and a half after the company was originally put together by Tom. And at the time, 2 or 3 people in the business. And since then, we started off going out, knocking on doors, seeing who was interested in kind of getting this on board, selling the vision of where we, saw this going to. And, 10 years later, there are so many stories to tell, but, we've taken a lot of big steps, and in a lot of ways, we have truly changed the landscape. We truly created a brand that companies look at and say, okay, this is what I need to be able to, evolve my business, to stay in touch, to, build new products and build something that truly resonates with their audiences. And in some ways we've achieved that, but, like you say, it's an age-old business. The industry of market research is enormous. So we still got a long way to go.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in a bit. I want to go all the way back. Knowing a little bit about your history. You're a Swede. Studied in Australia, married a Canadian. You're living in the UK. You spent some time in New York City. Am I missing any big gap here?
Geographically, I think we're on point. I think that's it covers it pretty well. I was, when we were talking about this, I've been kind of reflecting on, why have I taken this journey? And it's very distinctly like geographics, spending time in many different parts of the world. Part of it is just opportunity. Part of it is opportunities present themselves, and I like opportunities. I'm very optimistic. I like to kind of grab something that presents itself and run with it. But going back, actually, the kind of drivers behind this really comes I remember early days, a family member sitting me down and going, go out, see the world, explore it, and get yourself an education, right? Get yourself a degree. And I think that stuck with me. Growing up in Sweden, I eventually found an opportunity to go abroad, and I took it, and I just haven't looked back.
Was that the move to Australia?
Yeah, that's right. So at the time I was living in Stockholm. Finished my I think it's called high school degree. I think that's the equivalent. And I've been spending 3 or 4 years just kind of doing different jobs, everything from, selling calculators out of a plastic bag. I was about to say, but it's like a duffel bag, and which was a crazy job to do. But just you try out things, right? You see what you come across and you try it out. So I did that. I worked in retail for a very long time, which I really love retail. Like, I love having people that have been in retail. Well, because you're so close to the customer and the product and the experience and the environment. And you are, as a person, you have to really very quickly understand like what is the right balance in terms of like if you're approaching somebody in a store, you really quickly need to read how they're reacting, how they're thinking. You need to ask the right questions. It's the entire, I guess, sales process. It's the entire brand experience. You have to think on so many different levels. I really like that. I think it's important to have that connection and have that experience.
Yeah, it's so amazing how this story keeps coming through with the people that I speak to. Those formative years of doing these odd jobs, these selling calculators out of a bag and doing the retail work that actually becomes so vital to what you do later on. It really builds this foundation of how you interact with people and your team and everything like that. So I think I mentioned this in a previous episode. To me, that retail experience that you had was bartending. This one-on-one experience. Every person's different. You got to think on your feet. That's fantastic. So you went from there. You went to Australia, correct? How did that happen?
Right. Yeah. So I think at the time before I went to Australia, I was working nights in a petrol station just outside of Stockholm. And reflecting back, I think I probably reached the end of I don't know what I'm doing with my life. So I just ended up working night at a petrol station, which gave me cash in my pocket and a lot of daytime to spend with my friends. So I was like, this is cool. But I didn't feel like it was going anywhere. So I guess like that kind of the voice in my head came back and said, you know what, get a degree, go abroad. So I combined the two of them. By chance, I found this student fair that introduced me to the school in Australia. And I thought, well, why not? So I moved to Brisbane, Australia, to do a journalism degree, which didn't actually last very long. After 6 months, I realized, I've got a creative streak, but I'm not a writer. It's just, and obviously journalism is much more than that, but it just didn't click for me. It just didn't feel right. So I switched my degree and got into PR and media communication.
Right. Yeah. But also during that time, you started a business, didn't you? A social media business.
Yeah. Right. So I met up. So at the time, so this is 2002, somewhere around there. I'd come from Stockholm and in Europe at the time, there were a lot of kind of businesses evolving that were kind of merging entertainment, media, in taking photos of people and then having people join this kind of community and sharing and discussing what was going on. So we didn't really know where this was going, but we thought it's an interesting concept. It gets us connected to the new city which we lived in. So it was me and it was one South African guy, another Swedish guy, an Australian guy, and myself.
Sounds like a bad joke.
And we all walked into a bar, and but no. So we kind of sat down and were like, hey, this is a pretty cool concept. We could do it over here. And we did that for about 3 years. We built a really strong local following. I mean, it was local in Brisbane. So, Brisbane isn't necessarily the metropolis of the world, but it was a great playground for us to kind of understand what is it like to build a business, start a business, engaging, trying to get advertisers, trying to get people buying into a brand, building that kind of online experience. So we did that for about 3 years. And to be fair, I probably spent 90% of my time doing that and 10% at school, which for all the kids out there, I don't recommend that to being the right thing, but, it worked out for me. I was fortunate. So, in the end, we sold it to one of my founders, before I, decided to move on.
What made you decide to move on?
So, I think, a lot of different things. We got to the end of my kind of university studies and we thought about what's next. Australia did feel like it was far away. That was just like you're 24, 25 at the time. And a lot of my, even though I made amazing friends and relationships in Australia, I felt like a lot of it was back in Europe. And when we were kind of, playing with the idea of like, should we expand this into like Sydney or Melbourne, or what else can we do with it? At the time, the Australia have some pretty stringent, like, what's it called? Immigration laws. So they were primarily looking for hairdressers or accountants. And I didn't fit any of those two. So I decided that, you know what, this might have been a good chapter. Time to move on. Time to get back to Europe.
And from there, you went to London, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I had 10 days in London. So I had a friend of mine who lived there, who I met in Australia, who said, come over and visit me for a couple of days. And 10 days turned into 10 years, or actually 15 years.
I know we've got this random small connection in that we both worked in gaming in London. I had the worst, most mind-numbing job, QA, testing mobile phone games like Sims 2, and there was some other racing game as well. But you got to work at a company called Gamesus, and that's essentially where I believe you honed a lot of your craft. You worked on some really interesting projects. Can you talk about that experience a bit? What did you learn from those couple of years?
Yeah. So Gamesus is kind of, I describe it as a gaming software business. They had a number of different kind of like, consumer facing brands that they either managed directly or through white label relationships. So you had like, large radio stations or media publications, like, I think The Sun was one of the customers, and Global Radio, and these kind of customers. So I joined, and, somebody actually, like my manager at the time, who I was still very close with, kind of took a chance on me. They wanted to introduce a new function in the business, which looks after their, high rollers, if you will, right? To build a marketing program that services, the biggest, gamers or gamblers, if you will. So I came in, I was like, yeah, it sounds like, a bit of relationship, bit of business. I'm sure there's a lot of things I can learn here. And the amazing thing, this was almost a startup business. There's like 60 people in there, or growth business at least. I just got to work with, so many different departments, so many different teams, learned, both the kind of internal relationships that you got to build within a business, but also everything from like, how the product was built to, how the most senior relationships were formed and created, and how the business thought about growth and acquisition. And one of the main things, if I was going to take away, apart from just being comfortable jumping into anything new, is, I got to work a lot with numbers, right? So I got like in the deep end, big Excel spreadsheets, do numbers, understand the models and how to work with them. And that honestly is a skill that really lives on with me. I use it every single day.
So is this, would this be an example of another high growth company where you joined them quite early on? From my understanding, it's them that bought Virgin Games, I think, in the end.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think they bought the Virgin Games, and they also sold a number of their business into a couple of large Las Vegas businesses as well. So done some amazing work there. The interesting thing is I got to work both on the inside and, building their marketing business for these, high rollers effectively, and then moving into this, partnership role. We went out and brought this product and presented the proposition and how to integrate it within their current offerings to, basically build new revenue streams. So it's a super interesting business. In the end, I am really looking for something that I felt personally passionate about. While meeting some amazing people in that business and learning a lot, it's not an industry that gets gets me on fire and gets me excited and gets me want to get out of bed and spend the next 10 years there.
Yeah, so you did that for a couple of years, and then you met Tom Smith, the founder and CEO of Global Web Index, your current partner. How did that happen? How did you guys meet?
So I think throughout my career, there's been a lot of fortunate events, lucky circumstances that puts you in the right place at the right time. I was looking for something new. I connected with Tom. I think it was we basically through a recruiter who knew Tom and said hey, you know what, what you've done here at Gamesus, building, shaping, being part of something new. I think there's an opportunity for you to meet somebody who wants to do that again. So I met up with Tom. I think it was one interview, maybe two. He told me, his vision and where he wanted to go and what the opportunity was. And I thought, this has the capability or the ability to have a real impact on the world. And in a very positive way. Right. So I kind of bought into the vision.
That was quite a big leap, I think, for you, wasn't it? It was still self-funded, bootstrapped. Early days, you were employee number 2, 3, something like that.
It's 4 people when I joined.
Yeah, so that was quite a big leap. What drew you to it? Well, maybe let's start with how did the company start? Why did the company start? What's the origin story for what Tom started building?
Sure. So Tom at the time was at University of McCann, head of consumer futures, which, for all intents and purposes is to understand where consumers are going next, what technology they're adopting, what services they're into, and the need for being able to look at and get access to up-to-date information that spanned across multiple markets and that captured the latest trends. That need just wasn't fulfilled by anything that was available at the time. So if you went to traditional market research companies, they would be focused on what's happening in the UK and very focused on mass media, TV, print, etc. Although there were quite a few kind of online players, they were primarily focused on clicks, traffic, that kind of information, and neither of them gave you the ability to see what does the consumer or your audience look like, in the UK, in Vietnam, in Australia, in South Africa, in the US, and how do you kind of bring this together into an experience that's easy to kind of digest and take part of. So he left University of McCann, first year, classic, out of his bedroom, building a business, doing 100,000 meetings or whatever it might have been. After getting Microsoft on board as the first client, which was a big, not only a big brand, but just a big recognition of what the need is. And a company like that investing was pretty cool. That's pretty much the founder story.
So you've told me before there were essentially 2 main problems in the industry that needed to be solved: data and user experience. Can you talk about that and maybe what the solution was that GWI or Global Web Index at the time kind of used to solve that?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the interesting thing is this is just still highly relevant today, right? It's the data problem was a little bit what I just kind of, talked about with regards to the data was looking at traditional media. It was released, very infrequently. So by large research providers, you get data once a year and it'll be aggregated for the last year of information that's been collected. It was using very traditional market research methods, which is going out, making phone calls or knocking on doors and filling out paper surveys, which has a lot of inherent challenges with it, which means that it takes time. It might not truly reflect the kind of total audience, and it doesn't stay up to date with the kind of latest trends. So what we did there is we basically looked at what is the most scalable, fastest way to collect this information, and that is by using online panels, right? So we went and basically built relationships with online panels so that we could, I think we started off with 16 markets, getting a syndicated data set. So the same questions are asked by the same or representative respondents in every single market. And this all comes together to one data set that you can now interrogate and explore.
What was the need to have that standardized approach? What was the thinking around ensuring that every country is answering the same questions?
It's consistency, right? If you're a brand that has want to make a plan or come up with a strategy for how to evolve your products and services, you need to be able to have that single point of view to make sure that you're looking at comparable data, right? If I've got different ways of collecting information in the UK versus in Germany, then it's very difficult to compare the results and making sure that you're making decisions that are going to service both markets.
Yeah.
Because you basically need to have a single point of view as a foundation, and then you can build on that.
And I suppose that single point of view also comes into play when you're thinking about the single user experience as well. You want the access to that data to be as simple and obvious, I guess, to the users as possible. To make their job easier, save them time, right?
Absolutely. And I think, so the user experience side, and I think this was like looking at the industry and where we are today and where we're still going, there is a need for making data available to more people, right? Traditionally you'd have, expert market research users who would be using quite complicated, cross-tabulation platforms that require you to code and build to get those answers. And that is not a scalable experience. I don't think either one of us would have spent our time being niche and really understand how that works, but we still want to have access to insights that can help make our job easier and make our planning and strategy better and faster. So we were looking at that experience and saying, what the future is putting this data in the hands of more people. And to do that, you need to create a completely new experience. So that's where we built, our own platform effectively. And that's where we're still investing heavily today to make that user experience both in technology, but also in how we service people through our platform and from a customer service experience.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was always very clear to me is by making it so simple for the people who aren't necessarily fixated on Excel spreadsheets and able to work the numbers to a point that get to an insight, it gives them more time to focus on the things that are important to them, coming up with really important strategies, using insights to make these big decisions, as opposed to spending 90% of the time bringing all the data together, putting it into a format that makes sense, and then sharing it with somebody else who potentially comes up with the idea and the way forward.
I like the so we've had this, we're in the process of kind of beta testing our next generation platform right now. And one of the themes or one of the thoughts that we have is, and this goes probably directly against how a lot of the kind of big platforms are thinking today, right? If you think about how the value of a user or somebody engaging with your platform is how much time they spend on your platform, right? More time means longer exposure to advertisement and whatnot. Actually, our job needs to be to minimize the time you spend in our platform. The less time you spend, trying to get to the answers, the more time you have is translating those answers into action, products, new solutions. And so that's our obsession in making that experience as intuitive as possible, and as scalable as possible.
It's that speed to insights, right?
Exactly.
The company who's faster wins, essentially. Faster and smarter, I guess. Yeah.
We'll take both.
Yeah. So right, the company's going at the time for about 8 to 9 years at the time, and then it's 2018, if I remember correctly, Series A funding. What was the catalyst for funding and this decision to rapidly expand?
So, I mean, I think it's a lot of things, and first off, like spending 8 years, organic growth is extremely rare. There are very few companies that can or even want to take that decision. And so after, coming up to 2018, we saw a need to both, capitalize. It's primarily about capitalizing on the opportunity, right? We have a great product with a great product market fit. And what we wanted to do is think about okay, how do we continue to invest in this? And both in terms of people, you need feet on the ground, you expand into the US, and you need to continue to invest in the product and the services that takes us into, the next 10 years of business. So it was, just looking at how can we continue to invest in what we do, at a slightly higher rate. But also, we found a partner in Stripes, who are the investors who, just really close alignment in terms of how they think about the world, what their expectations are. And all these pieces came together and it's just the right time to do it.
Okay, well, I mean, I know I often hear that this transition from this startup phase, which I guess you guys were in for the first couple of years, moving into this high growth company is where a majority of companies fail. A very high percentage of these companies fail. But you haven't. You quite the opposite. You guys are expanding into new markets, doing great things. What do you believe some of those key reasons were for I guess crossing that chasm?
Sure. So, I mean, I think it's very difficult to truly pin it down. But if, from my point of view, the first one is true product market fit. Right? We have a solution that truly solves problems for our customers and a lot of customers. So, when you go, and open up a new business conversation, and we've spoken about this, there is very rarely, if ever, a no. This is not for us. We don't need this. It is very often okay, this is a really great product. We need to find a way how we're going to integrate this within our business. But, arguably on occasion, timing might not be right. 2020 it's been a challenging year for everybody. So you need to find the right way and the right, people within that business where, the product can start, build, and grow. So I think the product market fit is really foundational to why we got here in the first place. Yeah.
I mean, you bring up a good point about 2020, the year that it's been. Did you guys see any opportunities in this year that might not have been around in previous years, from a timing perspective? People maybe leaning on easy access, digital access to insights, something like that?
Yeah, I think, the obvious opportunity for us, is that businesses have been forced to think differently about how they operate, think differently about how they go to market. And two things have happened. One is, the transition to digital and digital transformation is rapidly increased, right? Companies that were, traditional brick and mortar businesses are now immediately going, how do I get my products either online or direct to customers, right? How do I adopt and play in a completely different way? And the other piece is your audience, their perceptions of the world, their experiences, has foundationally changed, right? And it will continue to change because, this has been, a time and a place, in history where, we've been so, it's been like the greatest social experiments ever, right? We all kind of moved home, and at some point we'll start properly going back. But what does that look like? How does that change? How does that evolve? And I think, that, understanding how your customer thinks about that is critical, and it requires investment, which is, a challenge and an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point for anybody doing a strategy, trying to work out how to speak to consumers in this year and after this year. Leveraging any case study or report from November or December last year is pointless. It's a wasted effort. So keeping up with the times on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis is vital. I get that.
Definitely.
And if there's somebody, somebody that's trying to follow the same path as what you guys have taken, any learnings that you would, I guess, suggest and put forward in their journeys?
Yeah. So so here's how I put it. There is no golden, there's no magic formula, right? If you in any kind of startup environment, you need to have, certain type of characteristics, I believe. You need to probably be comfortable with, investing a lot of time. You need to be prepared to work really hard. And you need to probably be comfortable with, to a certain level, the risk, right? You're investing a lot of time, a lot of resource, a lot of money, and you're also, putting your faith in the hands of other people, right? And I think that one of the catalysts and one of the kind of real drivers of our business is, enabling other people, right? And trying to find people that can, make this journey a reality, because you can't do it on your own.
I think that's one of the real common difficulties with startup leaders, is putting faith in somebody else. You start a company, group of you've got own talents, you bring it to the table, there's success, and then to scale, you need to start trusting as many people. And my understanding is that this is a big point of when companies are moving from the startup phase to the high growth phase. A common strategy is for the founder to step aside and bring in somebody that has built that kind of company before or been part of that kind of company before. And you guys chose not to. You've stuck, yourself and Tom as being there from the beginning. You've chosen to run with it and build the company with the original founders and members. Do you see that as a benefit? Do you buy into this whole concept of the founder's trap at all?
Yeah, I understand it, and I think it clearly there are scenarios where having the original, having the founder or the original leaders, whatever, being part of the business, it will shape the business. But I think that actually, looking at our business, we've invested in finding people that can come and shape the business at all levels, right? So, even, from our executive team, we have a incredibly diverse range of people with a lot of different experiences who makes up the sum of the good work that we do. And that, I think, goes across our business, all the way through to, the graduates that we bring in to, looking at our product team, our sales team, our talent team, our HR team, whatever it might be. We are working, and this is work in progress, by the way. There is no, magic formula to any of this, apart from try and find people that you trust, bring them into the business, enable them to do their job, and listen, and I think that's, I think the founder's trap can become an issue if you have a founder that is trying to dominate every conversation. If you have a founder that is, bringing in and listening and contributing and helping to shape, then you're looking at it from a very different perspective. And that's what I think we've done.
Yeah. That whole concept of conscious leadership, I think, comes into it quite a bit as well. So you guys got the funding, you started expanding 2 years ago, starting to focus on new territories, looking at Africa, South America, APAC, which we're obviously very excited to be a part of. But you had that partnership experience at Gamesus, and how much did that experience play into your decision to go this route as opposed to setting up, multiple head offices and satellite offices around the world?
Yeah, I think that was reflecting back on it, it was certainly a reminder of what the opportunity could be and seeing the business model work. I think, our decision to, work with partners in different parts of the world, I think it goes far beyond the business model. I think it's about, as a business, we have the ability to work with global and local companies anywhere in the world. But at the same time, we don't know what it's like to sell on the ground in South Africa or in Italy or in, Japan for that reason, right? It's going and opening up, and when we open up in the US, this was a learning curve, right? You open up in a new country, you have new culture, new laws, new environments, new capabilities, and new ways of working. And by finding partners that have that knowledge, you're accelerating your ability to, tap into that market. So, working with partners as a model, is incredibly attractive. And it makes us as a business a lot more scalable, right? If, working with you guys and spending time with you, being able to translate our knowledge into your business and you taking that and bringing that into the market that you already know, it has a lot of legs. We can go very far with this.
I mean, one of the reasons that exists is really to I guess give African professionals the same kind of attention that the northern hemisphere countries would be receiving from tech. But you guys, from the outset, have had this global viewpoint of how the tech would be used. What do you see as the value that local African professionals can get out of leveraging global tech like yours? Do you see it as a way of maybe leveling the playing field in some way?
Definitely. I think, it's an opportunity for, like you say, like leveling the playing field. There should be no difference in terms of what country you operate in. You should have access to the same great information to make decisions. And I think it's about leveling the playing field in your local market, but it's also about looking at what is my opportunity beyond my borders. How can I leverage that if there is an opportunity? And that's what this is all about. It's about making, great data available everywhere.
So what's next? What does the future look like for GWI, not Global Web Index? Some big moves coming up, things that you can talk about, things you can get excited about.
There's a few things I mentioned already. Launching the new brand. I'm super excited to see, how this transforms the experience of GWI. It was, we had our internal brand launch just a couple of days ago, and, literally getting goosebumps from seeing some of the content that we're creating. And it's kind of like it's a new journey. It's a new experience. And I think it will connect with both our customers and the marketplace in general in a completely different way. It sets us apart clearly from how other businesses in our space are positioning themselves. So that's super exciting. Continuing to build on our platform capabilities, and seeing where that's growing. I can't go into too much detail, but it's looking amazing. And the team that we have that is building it is truly spending their time to understand, how do we continue to solve more problems for our customers and make the experience of our platform as intuitive as possibly can be. And then, we continue to invest in our data set to I guess resolve more deeper challenges into different kinds of industries. So this year we launched our GWI USA data set, which, gets really granular into the US economy and the US marketplace. We just released our second wave of GWI Work, which is, the largest B2B study, spanning 10 countries, around the world. So that's super exciting. And our chief research officer just did an event with LinkedIn, just yesterday, which is, great to have that kind of synergy with big power brands like LinkedIn. And next year we're looking at, a sports data set, a gaming data set. We're adding Greece. There is so many things going on. But they all focus on like creating really good data and really good experiences, that help people make decisions. So, I'm really hoping it's going to be an exciting year for us next year.
I'm sure it will be. I'm very excited by the B2B angle. I think B2B data is so rare and hard to come. Be able to have that as a focus for the company, I think is very visionary, I guess. But you guys have built this incredible business. I'm so super excited to see how it keeps growing and growing. But what do you think has given GWI that unfair advantage in the market? Why has it clicked and made such an impact?
I think it all comes back to, genuinely solving problems for customers. And I think that's been, the real heart of who we are. And honestly, like, with that experience, and something that I haven't really touched on is the customer experience, how we work with our customers. Our team goes above and beyond to build not only great relationships, but help customers solve problems. Right. So, and that goes, we continuously, so in our business, we have, we use Slack, and on Slack, we've got like, a success channel where we kind of like every team will talk about the different types of successes that are happening. We win a new logo, or we close a deal, or we complete the project, or we release new data, or we write the report, whatever it is, tell that story, share the success with the business. And continuously you get the feedback from, clients saying, you guys have really gone above and beyond to try and help us, solve this problem, or, give us this service, or whether it's about like the hours we're available, or, the ideas we bring to the table. That's a real differentiator. And that didn't really that didn't really exist before we invested in it. The market research industry was very much a hand over the data, and you do the work, and we invested in building great relationships. And I think that is a massive USP, and it should be a natural investment for any business. Your customers are, that's the lifeblood of your business. So, I think that's probably a major unfair advantage, if you will.
Sure. I mean, I can attest to that. We've already seen a lot of that kind of feedback coming from the local market. Almost surprised at the level of service and support and assistance in getting to that proficiency, I guess, in using the platform and getting to the insights. So you, Sebastian, you selling calculators out of a black bag, door-to-door sale, to ending up, helping run one of the fastest growing international businesses that I've kind of been a part of or been linked to in the space for 15, 20 years. What drives you? What helps you keep pushing and striving for more?
So yeah, it's a good question. I have a tendency to not, obviously I'll have a tendency to not reflect too much on what's happened, but focus on what's happening next. And maybe that, taking that out of context, it might sound a little bit strange. I certainly think about what we've done and how we've, what's worked and what hasn't worked. But really, for me, I really enjoy the journey. I thoroughly enjoy being part of, coming up with new ideas, working on, new concepts, new projects, new people. And I think I remember when I left Gamesus and joined Global Web Index, I said to myself, I was like, I want to be a part of a business that truly has an impact, that truly makes change. And I think that still rings true for me, but a lot of that is about people, right? Having an impact on people and really helping them, build and grow, and helping myself grow. Listen, we're all still growing, and I think, I've got a lot to learn. So that's my pursuit, is just to kind of understand how can I do what I do better.
I love that. But Sebastian, thank you so much. I think we've gone way over the time that you were hoping to give me, but I really appreciate it and I've really enjoyed this. So thank you, and I really look forward to working with you guys in the years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Kelvin, just always a pleasure to talk to you. You have an amazing team. Working with you guys has been fantastic, and I look forward to continuing this. And thank you for having me on the show.
Thanks, and hopefully we can have you down in South Africa quite soon as well.
I'm coming, no problem. All right, take care.